Joining us now, NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin, and UK court reporter for Law 360 and the author of The Lasting Harm, witnessing the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, Lucia Osborne Crowley. All right, so everybody, just for notes, we are watching the White House press conference right now where the White House team and the DNI are trying to, look, Tulsi Gabbard right here, are trying to claim that President Obama interfered in the 2016 election and tried to keep Donald Trump from winning in an illegal way. We have all of the context around that and the obvious fact check coming up a little bit later in the hour, so we're not going to get into it right now. We want to focus right now on Ghislaine Maxwell. So Todd Blanche is going to interview her in prison, Tom. What could he possibly be wondering that she has to tell him?
I'm going to answer that in a second. We do have some breaking news, Katie, in that a federal judge in Florida has just issued a ruling in regards to an effort by the Justice Department to transfer grand jury materials from that district. I know you're looking at your phone. We haven't even had a chance to post it internally. Our colleague Ryan Riley just zipped it to me, knowing that we're coming on set. Grateful for him. Basically, the judge is saying there that the court in the rules of grand jury proceedings prohibit the court from transferring grand jury material from the Southern District of Florida, which was the initial prosecutorial office that investigated this matter, and of course then got into the highly controversial non-prosecution agreement with Epstein. That court is prohibited from transferring that material to the Southern District of New York. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't a grand jury in New York. Of course there was. There was a significant amount of material that was presented, we believe, to a grand jury in New York. So it's not as if we won't see potentially grand jury transcripts if a judge allows it on the Jeffrey Epstein case in New York. But we also know that there was a significant amount of material that was uncovered in the course of that Florida investigation that then became part of the New York investigation. How much of that is an overlap? How much of the release in New York could be contingent upon the material in Miami that the judge has just denied the transfer? That's something, Katie, that we don't know because obviously that's secret material. So I mentioned this just as a procedural thing. You're going to hear about it later today, and I wanted to make sure we were briefed up on it. I know Lisa will go through the court document.
It does allow the Trump administration to say, we tried, but we're not being allowed to do this by a court.
And this was entirely predictable because, Katie, you and I have discussed the Second Circuit, where the Southern District of New York has a different rule than other courts in the country. The Southern District and the Second Circuit allows you to show special or exceptional circumstances that would justify the release of grand jury material. The 11th Circuit has a recent decision that says, no, only the factors that are described in Rule 6E, that's a rule of criminal procedure that governs grand jury materials and their use. The 11th Circuit says, no, you're limited to those factors. A court has no other powers to release grand jury materials. It was entirely an application of black letter case law here that justifies this decision. But yes, it allows the Trump administration to say
whether that'll be enough for Donald Trump supporters. You want to jump in one more time on that?
I'm just going to say real quick on that. Are you referring to the Pitch decision, right? Because I know you haven't had a chance to read that yet. Yeah. So that is what is decided in the docket. So what Lisa said applies to this case.
Let me ask you now about Maxwell.
Yeah.
We talked about this. We started to talk about it yesterday. What could Todd Blanche be getting out of Maxwell that we don't already know about?
I'm not so sure. And so a little bit of a background on Maxwell. One of our colleagues pointed this out and reminded me of it today. There was a pretty significant detention hearing for her, an effort to keep her behind bars pending trial. And unlike what we see at a lot of detention hearings, there were actually witnesses that were brought there, and there was testimony that was elicited even from a realtor in New Hampshire. And I think that testimony might be instructive for people that are looking towards Ghislaine Maxwell for answers. I'll let the audience decide. It was determined that she had changed her name and misrepresented her name in the course of purchasing a property in New Hampshire, where she was arrested by FBI agents from the Boston field office the day she was taken into custody. At that time, agents testified in court documents from prosecutors said that she was in the process of actually actually wrapping up her cell phones in tinfoil in what may have been a misguided effort for agents to be able to locate her cell phones. It was discovered that she was married, and there were numerous instances in the course of the application for her to remain behind bars by federal prosecutors where she, according to them, misled them repeatedly on the location and the amount of her assets. So what they described before the court, and remember this actually, because of some things that happened within the trial, we never got to the perjury charges that were levied against her. Those were ultimately not brought in a separate trial because she was convicted on what she was convicted on. But there was a significant amount of perjury charges and conduct that was made in the initial charges against her. So this is somebody where, according to federal prosecutors in the past, has a demonstrated history of lying to federal prosecutors, lying to the government, and lying in the course of depositions under oath in proceedings. So that might be, let you and the audience decide,
so that
an
is
instructive tale.
Raising the question that is out there right now of whether she can be trusted, Lucia, to give accurate information. So if Todd Blanche goes there, by the way, Todd Blanche, remember, Donald Trump's personal attorney, and gets information from her where she talks about powerful people that Donald Trump does not like and starts accusing them in a conversation, is it crazy to question whether she would do that and whether that would give the administration something to hold up as a revelation in this furor surrounding Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, well, it is such a good question, and these are the really important questions to be asking right now because, as we've just said, prosecutors have said that Ghislaine has a history of lying to authorities. They were willing to bring federal perjury charges against her. As we said, that those ended up being dropped when the substantive charges when she was convicted on those. But, they have said that she has lied to them in the past, and she has been asked under oath about other people who were involved in this sex trafficking scheme, and she did not give any information then. So, the question is, what has changed now? From her attorney's statement yesterday, it seems that she is willing to speak to the government. So the question is, why is she willing to do that now? And in all the years since she was arrested, she has not been willing to do that, even though she's been given chances to do that. So, then we just have to think what kind of, and in any situation where someone is someone might be able to get a plea deal or a lighter sentence, for example, we always in the law have to think about how much credibility we give to evidence that we get from people in these situations. So, I think we have to think very carefully about what we hear.
Yeah, Lucia, just remind us again, what role did Ghislaine Maxwell play in the Jeffrey Epstein scheme? What was she convicted of? What did she do?
So this is crucial. What she was convicted of in 2021 was a number of substantive counts of assisting in the sex trafficking of underage girls. So what we heard from the prosecutors day after day after day in the trial, and this was really key, is that according to the prosecution's case, which of course was ultimately accepted by the jury, Ghislaine was a quote-unquote crucial part of this scheme. So her role in the scheme was to identify victims, groom them, earn their trust, and deliver them to Jeffrey Epstein for the purposes of sexual abuse. The jury also heard evidence that she was sometimes in the room when it happened and participating in it herself. So the role that she played that we heard about at trial was really, really central to this scheme. And one of the main points that the prosecutors put across to the jury, and again that the jury accepted, was that this criminal enterprise would not have been able to work if it weren't for her role in it.